Hello, so my name is Laura Hazan and I will be presenting the second part of the presentation. So I will be responding to the author's analysis. So one of the most memorable aspects of Davis' work is his exploration of the stark division between the affluent gated communities and the impoverished crime-ridden neighborhoods, depicting a city deeply divided along class lines. So in fact, Davis delves into this problem by bringing up the militarization of urban spaces. His analysis provides a portrayal of the transformation of public spaces in Los Angeles, influenced by the growing presence of military technology, surveillance, and the socio-political dynamics shaping the city. Uh, While reading Davis' work, there's a few passages that really stood out to me, but this one really reveals the problem and the issue in itself and how certain communities are affected by this militarization. As part of its Astro program, LAPD helicopters maintain an average 19-hour per day vigil over high crime areas, technically coordinated to patrol car forces and exceeding even the British Army's aerial surveillance of Belfast. To facilitate ground air synchronization, thousands of residential rooftops have been painted with identifying street numbers, transforming the aerial view of the city into a huge police grid. The 50-pilot LAPD Air Force was recently updated with the French aerospatial helicopters equipped with futuristic surveillance technology. Their forward-looking infrared cameras are extraordinary night eye that can easily form heat images from a single burning cigarette, while their 30 million candle power spotlights, appropriately called night sun, can literally turn the night into day. So there's a few key elements and a few things I would like to point out in this passage. The first one being that the LAPD maintain an average of 19-hour per day vigil over those high crime areas. So the people that are living in those impoverished neighborhoods and those crime-ridden neighborhoods, we can say, they're basically in a prison. They don't really have a say in what goes on. And the LAPD, instead of actually fixing the problem on a more surface and ground level, instead of actually participating in conversation face to face with people to solve certain issues, they're taking it from above. They have helicopters, and they kind of like create this distance between them and the actual people of Los Angeles. So I feel like this thing creates the sort of Berlin Wall, and it separates the community in half. It separates like the rich from the poor, and it just creates and reinforces existing social disparities. I would also like to point out that LAPD's technology has exceeded so much that it's now exceeding the British Army's aerial surveillance of Belfast. So we can clearly see that the LAPD is not a police force anymore. It has become this military tactile force. And yet again, I think that this creates this a distance from the actual people living in Los Angeles. So instead of being a force for the people and with the people, we're increasing security and making even their homes part of our grid search. Lastly, another key element in this passage is that the candle power spotlights alone are worth $30 million. So we can clearly see that there's a lot of funding that goes into this sort of project. So instead of using this money to create public spaces that everyone can enjoy, for example, gardens, parks, libraries, we're using this money to increase militarization, to increase technology. But as a result of that, as a consequence, we're just fragmenting those communities and hindering the inclusive and democratic nature of public spaces. Clearly, I really agree with David's assessment of this issue and of the militarization of public spaces. And I feel like this quote really highlights how low-income neighborhoods face increased surveillance and control, while the affluent areas are becoming fortresses equipped with high and technology security system and even having like private security. So these differences really shape this dystopian divide within the city. So I find his argument compelling, and I agree with his assessment of the militarization of urban spaces. So the increasing secularization and surveillance of public areas, while claiming to enhance safety, often disproportionately affect marginalized communities. In addition, I feel that this argument sheds light on an even bigger issue, one of power dynamics within urban spaces. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have the lower income neighborhoods that are being scrutinized and analyzed their every move, and they don't really have a choice. And sometimes they don't even have access to public spaces. And yet, there's still some areas that have a fortress around them, that have high-end technologies, and they have private security. We really see how there's this power dynamic. So the way security measures are implemented often reflects and reinforces existing social disparities. So this militarization can exuberate tensions and further fragment communities, hindering the inclusive and democratic nature of public spaces. What I also find fascinating about Davis' work is that it's still relevant till this day. So we can see with the growing presence of certain movements like the Black Lives Matter movement, that a lot of people are coming forward and denouncing the Los Angeles Police Department for their excessive use of force. So there's a lot of people that want to defund um, the police as a whole, or even but some also want to shift their funding. So they want to make sure that the money is being put to good use, and that we find solution to our problems, and that we do not exert force when force is not needed. So one of the solution is to dispatch trained crisis response specialists on call, involving mental health crisis, substance abuse, and homelessness. So we can clearly see that even in our current society, we're denouncing the problem of militarization, and we can still see how militarization affects our community, and enables us from actually achieving our full potential.
Even though I agree with David's analysis and portrayal of the transformation of public spaces through the increase in military technologies, I do have to disagree on his writing style in general. I found his text to be a little hard to read. Often I had to look words online, I had to reread a few sentences and passages a couple of times to actually understand what Davis was trying to convey and what Davis was trying to say. So by making his text a little bit more complex and elevated by using those certain words and certain long sentences, I feel like he's excluding part of the population that don't have a higher or have access to a higher education, which beats his initial goal and his initial purpose, which is to create a public space that's accessible for everyone, no matter our background, our educational level, our religion, our community. We can all come together and participate in public conversation and agree and disagree with his statements and his argument. By my but sorry, but by making his point and his text more complex, I feel like he's excluding yet again a lot of people, and the people are not going to be able to fully enjoy and appreciate what he's trying to say.